is, right? His hooves shone blue in their clefts. In his wet nostrils was a dull gold ring, ending with, 3 very strong beats. And again, why, if I analyze why I did it, I mean, I can see that I'm going for movement and then some closure at the end. As I wrote it, I don't know. It's been many, many years since I've read this, actually. So it's a great pleasure for me. I haven't looked at this in probably, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years. So it's a pleasure for me to look at it again. But I think so it's actually useful because I can, I have some distance from it now, so I can think about it a little more.
Amazing, and you did.
Yes.
You did.
Yeah.
And when you grew up in Kentucky, did you hang out with
bulls?
If I may say so. Yeah.
Yeah, we not a lot, but at one point we lived on a small farm, and my dad is not a cattle. He did breed cattle. He's actually a doctor. He's a radiologist. But he, as a sideline, he enjoyed raising cattle.
Amazing.
So I was inspired by that. But actually, the story is very sad. The bull dies at the end.
Let's talk more about the story.
Yes.
Storyline.
Yes.
What are you trying to do in this story?
Oh, it's hard. I actually think I failed in this story. I mean, I think it's a very good story, and of course, on some level, we always fail when we write, right? I mean, we're trying very hard to do something, again, to be very true and faithful to something, and then on some level, I think I always fall short. In addition to describing the world, I think, of this place and people and this very passionate feeling this man had for this bull and his son, and the son and father have the love the father and the son have for each other. I think it was somehow this triangle between them. I think I was exploring male love, there's and I mean that in all its varieties. I mean, I think often the ways that men love each other are not explored often in fiction. I think male relationships, the deep love that men have for each other, and I don't mean erotic love. I mean, although that's a component of the story, I mean all kinds of love. And I think I was trying to, through the bull, the son, the father, somehow explore all of those things in the story. Though, of course, in conventional plotting, we just have to have something that happens. And in this story, I think it's about a man who wants something desperately, gets it, and then it breaks his heart.
It breaks his heart.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And the son sees him broken. The son, and I think for the son in the story, in a way, it's a very short, but I think there is a coming of age element. The son sees the father's heart broken. And I think that's a huge moment in the life of a child, isn't it?
Of course.
When we recognize the fallibility or the pain of our parents, I think. And I think by the end of the story, the son has come to focused on his own pain, but as most children are. But that moment when we forget our own pain and see the pain of our parents, I think, is a very powerful thing. And I think that's what I was trying to explore in the story. So I don't know that I've succeeded. I think I succeeded in part, but not totally.
I'm going to read it
Yes.
very, very carefully.
Good.
As carefully
Again,
as
it's
I
old,
can.
so I feel my work has moved on, is even stronger than this now. But I was very proud of the story when I wrote it. I was very emotional about it. It was very close to me. Yeah.
How old were you when you wrote this story?
I was 30. Had just turned 30. Not quite 31. Between 30 and 31.
One of the guests that we had in Ascent, your colleague, Douglas Cohn,
Yes.
Whom I think is a great writer,
Yes.
Said that for him, writing is experiential, that the writer writes only from experience. Is that true?
Largely it is. But on another level, we have to use our it is experiential, but we have to use that to enter the realm of the imagination as well. I think if it's just our experience, somehow we have to use our experience to create another world. Because it's fundamentally the world on the page is a world that's not the real world. It's the author's vision of the world, as it should, which it should be. And I think the greatest work is even, the world of any one particular author's world is like no other author's world. Right? And I think that's what I want to do in my work, is I want to very purely create my own world on the page. So yes, I do agree. I agree and I disagree. And then I think some writers would totally disagree with me, though. I mean, I think
In what way?
I think there are plenty of writers who write purely from a place of the imagination. I mean, again, not that. I mean, even great fantasy has to have the real world in it. But I think many people often write very purely from that place of imagination. And I think that work can be very strong, written from that place only. I don't know.
I can't wait until we move on towards the end to speak about the work that is very dear to you,
yes.
Your recent work. But in the meantime, there are a few other things that I would like us to talk about.
Sure.
When I looked at the faculty bio, two statements that you made there just impressed me. One of them, paraphrasing it from memory, says, all literature is fiction.
All literature is fiction.
Fiction. I wonder
Did
what
I really
you
say
mean by
that?
that.
All literature is fiction?
So.
All the greatest literature is fiction. What did I say?
Think so.
But tell me,
I
yes.
might have probably misstated it. I'm glad you stopped me.
Probably it's here. I bet it's in this section. These are the quotes from me.
Yes, right,
yes. So what did I say? Tell me.
In fact, it's worth reading.
Maybe it's a typo. But maybe I did say it. I wouldn't.
Literature, which I also teach, helps us connect to something eternal about the human condition. I want my students to see that and at the same time gain a sense of how to use language. I like to look at literature as creative writing.
Oh, yes, yes.
I like to look at literature as creative writing. That is what I paraphrased.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Well, for my students, I want them to appreciate that even when they're tackling something like Nabokov, which I often do, or Chekhov, I often have them look at some of the greatest stylist and the greatest of our literary heritage. I really want students to have some acquaintance with some very canonical writers, but I want them to realize that at one point Chekhov was just a guy, with a blank page in front of him. He had to create that. He had to create what we see as literature. For Chekhov, was not. Chekhov was a guy trying to write a story. He had to use the techniques of fiction to write the story. He had to create characters. He had to create a plot. He had to know how to use dialogue. He had to know when to use dialogue. He had to know when to describe something. He had to know when to give an internal monologue. I mean, he had to know when to do many things. There were many choices that Chekhov made, or any writer made, again and again and again, just like a student does when he or she tries to write a story. We only see the finished product, right? But what I like to get the students to do is to have some sense of how that story was constructed. I want them to see that story was created. It was